Colleagues, we'll be moving to 3.7. We need to speed up a little bit. We've got a visitor coming in at 3. Chair, we are at 3.7 and it's on page 14. In the past, we had some, part of what we do is, you will remember, we discussed it yesterday on the development issue, was the whole thing of new publications and topics for research. So we are continuously busy with that. That's a continuous endeavor of NetACT. So what we have done is we've just compiled from the EXCOM site a couple of topics. So my suggestion would be that we quickly have a look at the topics, add topics that maybe our colleagues would like to add. This is suggestions. This is not that we need to do anything about it. And then we also need to add champions who will take these topics to do and drive them and do some research on them. And maybe we can end up in a publication, speak to Langham, speak to CLF, the guys who's Tyndale, who's Oasis, no, not Oasis, Oasis, who's also friends of ours in the US. So the topics, currently one project which is already started is the rewriting of the studying congregation. Someone asked about that previously, yesterday in the meeting. I think it was one of our online participants. Studying congregations in Africa is open source now. Fraser, it's on the only one that's locked is the Portuguese translation of it, but the rest is open source. It will be. Yeah, because we've got the rights. Jurgens gave us the rights for studying congregations. Okay, so I will talk to Fraser about that. So just a couple of days, a couple of months back, we got the rights. It took some time for the previous owners of the rights to give it to Jurgens, and then Jurgens gave it to us. So we own it now. We need to rewrite it. It's time for an update. So Professor Kobus Skuman from Free State University is willing to take that. Now, colleagues, again on communication. Some time back, we sent out 2 emails about this, looking for the practical theology scholars, specifically scholars in congregational studies, to help us write the book. So we need that. Kobus wants, we do not want to write the book or rewrite or give an update of the book. You'll remember those of us, I was also a contributor then. It was a joint effort in NetACT when we wrote that book. Everybody contributed. We want to do the same again. So please, that's the one. Then the second topics which we've got there is emerging new colonizers, indebting Africa, a critical reflection on the current developments. We all talk about the new colonizers, but maybe we should start doing some research on that. We had that webinar, you remember, with Prof. Neetling a couple of months back, which was attended quite well from our colleagues. Then youth, not there's a youth, there's a few, but anything on youth, we need to do that, something in that regard. And then working towards sustainable theological institutions, theoretical considerations and practical implications. Professor Emmanuel Bellon, some of you might have met him. He's written an excellent book on sustainable theological institutions. But he's someone that we can approach to help us to do some research. We've met him in Kenya last year. He was there. Chair, that's it. Let's open up the conversation.
And even for the youth, he is busy discipling youth around the world, not just in Africa, but around the world. He has leaders from different parts of the world. Now, something that we have forgotten perhaps is that the leadership book that we are supposed to also be promoting, just because Johan is not here, we need to bring that back. Because when he was part of us, he was always emphasizing on that because it was part of what Tyndale House helped us to publish. So we need to bring that alongside what we are promoting.
Chair, I think, yeah, we just left it out, but On our first day's discussion at the ATP, we must just include the leadership book. And on all that endeavors that we plan there, ATP plus the leadership. I'll just put it in.
Okay, more topics, please. Two things. Either suggest or suggest or volunteer to yes, I want to pick one of these topics and run with it. And then we'll make an arrangement how the kind of coming with it. It should be once we pick a year, it becomes a NetACT project. And in that sense, we're convening to brainstorm on that. And then have topics that we can now share to people who want to be writers, either within or outside. Yeah. Any hand?
Maggie? We've already named an additional 12 the three of you will work on that. Good?
Yeah, that's true, because the last thing we had it where we discussed public knowledge focus, and after that it's been youth looking at the demographics of Africa, and the key role the youth will play in taking up that agenda as well. So that was what was. So Hannes Kutsa, Chantal, and myself will pick up that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I wanted to say every time we meet, I hear a lot of conversation on resources, lack of resources, that we can do as an enemy. I don't know quite. But maybe resource mobilization. I think we need more conversation on strategies, what Professor Patrick has been sharing with us. Because part of what we really need to have the necessary skills and tools, even locally, there are means that we can lend resources. And I keep on hearing this, even in NetACT, after so many years, maybe I would say 20 years now, the issue of resources, it keeps on resurfacing.
Yeah.
You have a topic in mind?
So there is some mobilization. Mobilization would be the area to talk about. I don't know if we want to relate it to leadership or management or whatever, but it's the resource mobilization that we need even to train the pastors so that we need to be sustainable.
You know what I will do with this question you are raising? Emmanuel Bellon, this is his area. Yes. He's the vice president of scholarship, but he is. Yes, they give scholarship. Right now, he is. In fact, he brought the idea of vital, sustainable initiative. And he is the one working with people on strategy on that. Let's invite him to NetACT, to work with NetACT to develop something for resource mobilization, and let's see what will happen. I saw you laughing.
Yes, I'm laughing because we have to miss my alma mater.
Yeah.
And we need to do that.
Well, don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
That's just
Yes, don't worry. He has changed. He has been transformed. The other thing I hear you say, let's develop this courage of approaching our own people.
yes.
In each of our countries, we have individuals that have the money. But because we have not cared to approach them, we should have the courage to approach people. And this is where all the schools can begin to do that in their own context. So that we now have a pool together. That is part of what I hear you say. Let's have a pool of resources. So that we're not always crying of resources. The resources are there, even in the continent. And the organizations will go to look for funding. That's what they do. They approach people. That was why I said our growth is another tool that now we can use. Because people want to give to something that will have vast impact. And so this is an opportunity for us for that kind of funding.
Even thank you, sir. Even hearing Professor Patrick, the strategy the Muslims use, they use resources for their cause. But Christians, we haven't really been trained to say, if I have money, I should invest in propagating the gospel. Somehow our resources and our faith, they are not together somehow. Unlike the Muslims, they will say my business, 10% of my business will go towards proclaiming the Islamic faith. So that's what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think that the suggestion of the youth, the focus on the youth is very important. It's been a couple of years now that within NetACT, voices has been going up for us to look at that. So I'm fully supportive of that. Also because we have expertise, we have a lot of expertise in the network. You will remember that I said yesterday that one of the things that was difficult with the theology and development thing is that it was extremely discipline focused. But I think when of course there is something like youth work that is very specialized, but I think you can also write on youth and on children from different disciplinary perspectives, pastoral perspective, from biblical perspectives, people talking about, in systematics, a theology of child's theology, things like that. And, there are people working on that. So I think one can have one can produce a very good product if one can get authors for that. The other thing is what Maggie now talked about, the leadership. I think that is also a burning issue. And leadership, again, is something that opens up a lot of possibilities for interdisciplinary work. We've got in Stellenbosch, we've got the Stellenbosch Business School that offers courses, postgraduate courses in leadership. If one listened to what Hendrik Storm said the other night, I mean, those are the type of inputs that one can get from the schools of business, for instance, on leadership. We have somebody in our faculty that specializes in Christian leadership. But I mean, I can think also of a couple of studies that have been done, doctoral studies that have been done in our faculty on issues relating to leadership. And again, leadership is something that you can write from different ethical perspectives to practical theological, missiological perspectives. That's again something that would be easy to reflect upon from different disciplines. Thank you.
I wish to comment on number 4 if we are done with number 3. Number 4 in the sense that sustainability of our theological institutions, especially those institutions like ours, which is a seminary, not within the university, so it's standalone. It is a serious challenge to have this institution sustained. And one of the issues that I believe the fact that this is here was from is that theology doesn't really sell in the outside, in the world outside church or faith-based institutions. And I wish to encourage that maybe we take the same route that we did with African public theology to start thinking about having programs in our institutions that address social issues directly. There was a talk yesterday, I think, about how to turn in the African public theology into topics into courses. And I think that would be a good start to, if we were to pursue it, so that we have courses that can attract people from outside the faith-based institutions, but we would be training them in courses that are theologically biased, so that they have theological understanding, but they can serve in a school, they can serve in rehabilitation centers and other places as such. I believe this could work. In other, I still remember in some visions, like for instance, Botswana 2016 that was extended to 2036, I think. It specified that the education on family values was one of the critical areas that should be undertaken in a Botswana education. And I believe if such examples could work for us, if we were to try to diversify, have programs that are theologically biased, but which are social sciences.
As I teach Foundation for African Public Theology and reading the book now, I'm discovering the topics there. The topics there actually can be taken further. A chapter can be taken to another level to develop a book. Another book, just one chapter, because the information there has led to more, the need for more research in the area, pursuing that area. The youth thing will be a good follow-up to the book itself, because we are still looking at the Agenda 2063, Africa Agenda 2063 and the youth. In that sense, it will be a follow-up to this project that we have done, and we continue from here. So I will really feel that we take up the youth thing, because they are not just leaders of the future. By the way, all of us that were at Pretoria yesterday, the question that lady asked, or the observation she made, it was profound. So you guys, just will teach us, you are standing far away from us and telling us what not to do. You don't even understand us because you don't come close to us. I think it was here that I told you about what I discovered this semester at JET, the ECWA Seminary in Jos, that out of 500 students who have registered for the semester, we were able to get the statistics of age, the age demographic. And we discovered that 19 to 13 years, or 19 to 35 years old, were 235. That's a lot of youth in an institution. And you need to begin to think about how to influence this generation, this particular category. And what do you do in order to really make sure that you disciple them, you prepare them for the Africa God wants? So I think the youth thing could be a topic that will pick from this topic, this meeting today, and pursue. And it will be a natural follow-up of the African public theology. If we are not satisfied with that, we'll go to the pool, because that African public theology is already a pool that we can go back to and look for topics.
Can I just support youth as well? Just in terms of general demographics, Africa is a very young continent. So if you want to reach most Africans, then something to do with youth is probably the best way to go about it.
Chair, if we are done with discussions, can I read the resolution? The board emphasizes the need for contextual research and publications and encourage members to actively participate in research and publications. The board requests, because look, we are not the only ones publishing. So we encourage also our institutions to publish, because that's, and make it available to all of us in the network. So it's not just that we need to publish. You have the topics, as we said, you can publish on your own too, or approach us, approach the office and say, look, help us to find publishers for this, or we can maybe try to do that. The second one is the board requests members to advise the EXCO of topics and areas that are in need of research. It's a continuous thing. So if you do come across things, write to the EXCO and say, look, guys, we need to look at this, and the EXCO can discuss it. Number 3, the board to identify the following persons to lead and initiate work on publications. Studying congregations in Africa is Kobus Kuman. The youth will be Nathan Chiromo. What is Chantel's surname? Weber. And Hannes Kloetze. And then number 3, mobilization of resources. Maggie, I've framed it as mobilization of resources for sustainable ministry. Would that be okay with you? If we keep that topic. So, ma'am, you have got the vision. Do you have the job? Will you be able to take that? Well, no, Emmanuel is on the other one. We will have him on the towards sustainable theological institutions. We'll have him on that. This is something different, you know, on sustainable ministry and resources. Okay. Come back to us. I mean, think about it. It's on your heart. So my suggestion would be think about it and come back, and when we have an EXCO meeting, we can talk a little bit further about it. And then the 4th one will be working towards sustainable theological institutions in Africa. Thank you, Chair. Then we can move on to curriculum and ACTEA. Sorry, there's a question at the back. Excuse me. Sorry, David.
I just wish to find out, can NetACT assist in publishing some research works that have been carried out? Like in the area of domestic violence.
Is that a book?
Or articles? The articles.
Oh, we have a journal.
Okay.
If it is articles, what we would suggest is that we do a supplement to the journal. A supplement is always a nice way to go. And then what will happen is we get a guest editor for the supplement. So for instance, say that you have all the scholars and you've already done the work, then you become the guest editor for that version, for that publication, for a supplement publication. We haven't done it at the moment, but we really would like to do a supplement, I think, for the journal. So then you would be the guest editor for the supplement, and then work on it, and then we publish it online, and then it's open access to everybody. What is that sort of an answer to your question? Yeah, so it will be great if you take the lead on that. I think it's a very pertinent topic. Colleagues, that is it's the heart of many of our issues in Africa. So my suggestion would be, let's go the route of a supplement. You need to send an email to the editor-in-chief, this one here next to me. Then you'll put it on the board meeting.
By the way, what is his name? Sorry, I'm not good at names. Okay. He has said something that we may need to go back to. And I put it here, you know, the possibility of double honors, double areas of studies that helps expand the opportunity for our students. Is it possible a student can do 2 masters together? One in theology, one in another area that has to do with a public issue. Because we have to begin to think of how do we become more relevant? How do we create more opportunities for our people? So was it you that made that or somebody? Somebody made that kind of question. Yeah. So it's not NetACT that is going to do it for you, but NetACT, again, our aim is to encourage. Is it something that you can do? You know, like Stellenbosch, you have theology, but you have other schools in the university. Can you advise your students to do double masters? So that gives them opportunity because the churches are not enough. A student called me who graduated in 2019 and said, I'm still at home. I don't have a church. And I called his leaders and said, what is happening? They said, we don't have a place to post him. If he has double master, he can do the other one. And it's also part of what Patrick has said. You see, this training them to have multiple opportunities. That is how we can infiltrate the society and change the society. So we are just giving you this. We're not going to do it from the office, but we are encouraging it. We are advising it. Those who are already doing it, pick it up. And those who are not there yet. So I think it's a good thing if from this meeting we can say part of the resolution of the board is to encourage double honors. So yes, somebody has his hand there.
I was just going to make an example that when I worked in Botswana at Kgolagano College, the college was dying because you go to these higher education fairs, prospective students come and you tell them about your program. They are excited and there's this one question that they will ask you that breaks everything. The question is, after I do your degree, what will I do? Where am I going to be hired? Then I had the opportunity to design their bachelor's degree. And it has 4 streams: counseling, community development, education, and theology. So with education, it gives the basics of education and classroom management and things like that. It prepares this person to be able to function at a school level. So our students from that program, some of them became ministers and some worked in schools as student counselors. Well, the education system has that. But where there are shortage of teachers, they end up teaching because they have the skills to do that. And theology or religious studies is a teaching subject. And so they can fit in different and in various sectors. And I should say the funding agency, like you have in South Africa, in Lesotho we call it manpower. And I think in South Africa it's NSFAS. That agency which sponsors students, we then begin to have students who come into the college who were not necessarily interested in church work, but who were coming because there's a qualification that can lead to some kind of employment. And most of them were employed. So that's what I'm trying to talk about. A program that is integrative, that is holistic, that can fit. While this person is a theologian, but they would have, or theology, they would have other things to deal with so that they can get employment. In that sense, you attract people who can pay and who can be paid for by the government.
Chair, if I can just respond here, we are always thinking about, again, I'm hammering the point in terms of the value of theological education. We keep on thinking in the same patterns. And that is that we need to prepare people for ministry. There's a vast field of people out there who wants to do a second career, who are already in a job, and they want to study theology, not to preach, but because they love Jesus, and they think it's great, and they want to do that. And our institutions does not go out and get that people to study theology. We had a conversation, David and I had a conversation just now on this whole issue of the churches that keep on controlling theological schools. Now, colleagues, from my travels in Africa, and I guess I have a really good bird's eye view of theological institutions currently. It's just the institutions that are surviving, is the institutions that train ecumenically. The church institutions are suffering because the churches wants to control it. They want to have input. They put the wrong people on the boards. There's no skills. It's power fights in terms of who's going to be the chancellor, who's going to be the vice chancellor, and we've got these titles. Colleagues, it's a dead end. Sorry. I don't see those institutions surviving because the problem is those institutions are heavily depending on churches from where they originate. And the money from those churches are drying up, so they don't support them anymore. So the institutions that can bridge that gap in terms of train ecumenically, yes, it's a conversation with the church, a conversation in terms of what do you do with church-owned training. Of course, you have your denominational issues. Of course, you have your denominational homiletics. You have your denominational liturgical issues. You have your denominational polity that needs to be taught. Your denominational church history that needs to be taught. But that can be accommodated maybe in programs that are not accredited programs. It's church accredited programs. But it doesn't have to be, because our next issue now is accreditation. So, Chair, maybe I'm moving into the next one. Sorry. But that's the concern. So if you train ecumenically, you have an access to the second career, exactly what Mushweshwe is saying now, to the second career people. Look, and they've got money to pay because they've got a job. They work at government, they've got a job, they will pay the fees. They want to study theology. If we open that up, I think we are rendering a service to the church far beyond what we can imagine. Sorry, that's my sermon for today. Amen. Altar call, yeah, those want to be converted can come.
Chair, of course, the two have just said what I wanted to say, but I think our theological institutions are dying just because we have particularly focused on training of ministers and the attitude of people there. Even if we throw adverts, what they think is that when they apply to us and to be trained with us, the training aims at coming up with ministers, pastors. And that attitude has killed our institutions in terms of enrollment. We have we have serious challenges, few enrollment, as such, just because these institutions, maybe they also depend on tuition fees correction to survive. And that has affected our institutions. And thanks, Nico, that we are bringing this issue to see how best we can diversify. Apart from what my colleague has just said, I also was of the view that we can as well review our curriculums. Sometimes if curriculums have specifically focused on training of ministers, I think we are limiting ourselves. But at least if we try to diversify in terms of our approaches and the components of our curriculums, I think it may sometimes look attractive other than simply focusing on this. I think this is a very important issue that we're discussing.
Yes, please.
Chair, I keep wondering, I don't know, my life is that of wondering. I'm wondering where NetACT will have money so that in one of the meetings like this one, the heads of these churches could be part of the meeting. Because some of the decisions we take here may not even go through at the level of implementation because of denominational administrative bottlenecks. I'm sorry to come back to the issue of scholarships. A few months ago, I had a call from a friend who asked me to suggest 2 candidates for PhD below 40 years. I didn't have. In the whole of my church, I didn't have any. A church that has more than 600 clergy. Yes. I didn't have one of less than 40 years. Because of church policy, the church requires that when you have a first degree, you leave the school, you go work. Then you come back after a few years, do masters, you leave again, you cannot continue to the end. That is church policy. That is rather plain against us. So I don't know where we'll find money so that in one of these meetings, they should be here and get the consequences of their actions.
Yes. Colleagues, let me just, one of our institutions recently, the church just decided to remove 2 lecturers. They only have 3 lecturers that can keep up their accreditation with the accreditation authority. The church decides to remove 2 of them. Immediately they lose their accreditation. All the hard work being built up to accreditation is being removed by one church decision. Then people ask the question, why should I study theology? There's no value proposition. So we need to start thinking, yes, maybe next time, Brother David, ask the bishops or the moderators to zoom in. There's a Fraser, Elaine first, sorry.
I just want to say that this is not a uniquely African question. Just this week, just this week, we were visited by the provost of Fox University in the USA. And they have all kinds of faculties, but they have a faculty of theology, their smallest faculty as they are, the smallest faculty of all. And she said that they don't train any ministers, but they have a faculty of theology because there are people in all the other faculties that wants to do theology as part of their courses. And and I'm thinking this is the whole philosophy that has always been behind Kankuni. We will speak about Kankuni later as well, where you have training for pastors, theological training, but that's combined with some kind of skill or some kind of apprenticeship, whether it's plumbing or electrician or whatever, because especially in rural areas, the congregations cannot afford them anymore. So I think we must also, as training institutions, realize that often we find that our training institutions also have a department of commerce or an IT department that teaches that. But and then those students are there to carry the theological students, to cover the expenses of the theological students, or to keep the college open. But I think we must also realize that the time of the full-time pastor is, I'm not saying it's passing, but it's under pressure. So we also have to think, towards the future, that it might be that our pastors in the end, that would be their second careers. in the end if they want to serve.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge the need for a pastor to train ministry and other courses as well. There is quite huge demand these days. For example, one needs to be specialized in disability studies because those are issues which are critical to the implementation of his duties in the ministry. You are confronted with issues of disability, sign language, and that demand would go beyond the period of study which we have allocated for theology. Then it would mean to say the degree program will overlap or will need to increase more time for the student to complete all those. We are continually getting students coming to say, why can't you include this? Why can't you include this? Even among ministers, why can't you include the auditing? Why can't you include it? Because you are going to confront the auditors and you don't know auditor expectations. So you need to get them and then you know all that, so that you cannot be found wanting any time in the ministry. So, but with those expectations, you are supposed to be able to articulate your duties as a minister and also even outside ministry. Another issue, which is also coming in recently, is that those who do theology would want also to do theology not only to serve the church, which have seconded them, but they want the church to ordain them so that they can be free to apply for other tasks which are found maybe in Europe, because they are in need of ministers who are ordained. So our completing students cannot go because they are still attached to the church which seconded them. But still, there are opportunities out there. So when they come, they are not simply coming in to serve the church which they have seconded them. They are also coming because they are also knowing the greener pastures which are also coming in of recent. And some of the ministers are being absorbed, such that we are seeing a gap being left by ministers who are leaving the church today. So those are some of the issues which I think one of our members had already said that we need to engage even the church, the authorities, because such provisions may not be available for those who have completed. They can complete and stay for 2-3 years without being called into a congregation, but yet they are seeing greener pastures, but they need an ordination certificate so that you can go and practice. So there are a number of challenges which we need to also to maybe to collaborate with the church leaders. Thank you.
Colleagues, can we quickly touch on the whole thing of the next, we will link on to the accreditation, to ACTEA and accreditation. That is 3.8. Jerry, if I might just take us quickly in this. One of the issues which we got currently, at the, as I explained, I think yesterday also, is the whole thing of double accreditation. That for a long time, our institutions in Africa, the higher education authorities were not taking theological education seriously. So it was not on the accreditation radars within countries. So ACTEA was the big accreditation body, which we all, many of you guys belong to, and for many years was part of that. But then over years, ACTEA got very expensive. Maggie reminds us about that it's very, very expensive to accredit. But then also a second, in the last 10 years, there was a second development, maybe more towards the last 8 years in Africa, is that the higher education, in-country higher education authorities became much more aware of theological education. On their radars, it appears, and then they started, requiring from theological educations to accredit in-country. Now, the problem is that's also an expensive process. In South Africa, it's expensive. In African countries, the higher education authorities want lots of money for that processes. Murija is now in the process of accrediting in Lesotho, and it's a lengthy and a tedious process. So we can't do double accreditation. And that brings, unfortunately, the issue. Well, number one is we need to have accredited theological education. I think that comes in terms of what we just discussed in terms of students. They even if they leave with a theological degree, it needs to be an accredited degree. There's no point in a student coming to study some sort of a diploma, which nobody will recognize, and that does not anywhere appear on accreditation systems, whether it's ACTEA or whether it is in-country accreditation authorities. So that poses some real issues and challenges to our theological institutions. But as NetACT, we cannot not reiterate, you need to have accreditation. In what form? Either with ACTEA or with your in-country. In some countries, there are no accreditation authorities. Then ACTEA is your choice stop. Then you need to work with ACTEA and contact David himself, or the ACTEA offices in Nairobi. In countries where there's choices, it becomes a difficult choice. ACTEA is in the process of redefining itself and looking at its own future. I have been recently, like last week, been asked to serve on the board of ACTEA. So I will be going to the board of ACTEA now to see what's going on from NetACT side. Because there was always Jurgens was on ACTEA board. So they have asked him to stay on, but he is now really wanting to retire. Oh, everything goes dead there at the back. Okay, but then he suggested that I take his place there. So as his follower, as his the follow up on him. So let's see what transpires now in terms of accreditation. There's not much we can say to our institutions at the moment. We can basically discuss accreditation, but Chair, there's not. We can advise our institutions to do accreditation, but we also are very sensitive for the cost of accreditation. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that you need to do. And again, that's where the church, my plea and my cry, maybe it's more a lamentation. Yeah, maybe it's more like Job. My lamentation is about, so big church involvement, that the churches, yes, you can accredit it, you can have a church accredited degree. That's fine. I mean, but it's just the church that's going to pay attention to that. You do not help a student to pursue even a second career, or a student that wants to have to work like a tent maker job in order for him to support himself in ministry. But let's discuss it, Chair, please. Maggie.
Yes, Chair, as we start discussing this, I was just interested to know how many of our 54 institutions are not yet accredited. Or maybe we can ask those who are here, how many institutions are not yet accredited?
Are there any institutions that are not accredited? I know Cameroon has got a different system because the government in Cameroon does not take religious studies or theology as a... It was always the case in Angola too, but Angola has changed now. The government is now accrediting institutions. So maybe it's just one, Maggie.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, I know when NetACT started back 22 years ago, most of the institutions were not accredited. Over the years, the institutions have worked on accreditation, whether it's in their countries or regional, whatever. My question is ACTEA accreditation still relevant I raised the issue of the expenses. ACTEA is very expensive, very expensive. Since you'll be going to sit on the board of ACTEA, is there any way, if ACTEA wants to be relevant to Africa, that it can have reasonable charges? Because some of the things they ask, they are unreasonable as we start the conversation.
We'll take it up.
I think it is true what May said, that we need to reconsider on the same point of double accreditation. I think what ACTEA will have to do will be to review its relevance, because my experience is that the ministries of education in our countries will say, well, you are accredited with ACTEA, yes, okay, but it's okay. It's okay. It's the same as if you were to franchise a program, an academic program, and want to teach it in your own country. They will say it's okay if it's accredited over there. We want it to go through our accreditation. So governments wouldn't just, at least I know the government of Botswana, I know the government of Lesotho, they wouldn't just take it that you have been accredited by somebody out there. I still remember the CEO of Botswana Qualifications Authority saying, that would be abdicating our responsibility. Our responsibility is to ensure that schools adhere to the quality standards that are as stated in our Act, National Education Act. So, and we are not just going to accept any accreditation because we are told you went through. So I think with time, there will come a time when it would be better for institutions to really accredit with their own national accrediting bodies. So I really encourage one accreditation with the local authorities.
Thank you very much. I'm still supporting Dr. Magis's person to say, is ACTEA still relevant? But I just want to give the plight of a prospective theological student. Like, let us pick an example of Zimbabwe, where we come from. Our church, we have a theological institution which was established June 1925. Of course, by the support of the Mother Church, the Dutch Reformed Church, South Africa. Then lecturers would come from South Africa and come and teach and teach. They will be known in South Africa. That is the reason why there was that connectivity between Murray Theological College and Stellenbosch. But you see, times change. New pharaohs come, and a lot of things change. Now students join our college, they train for 4 years. They get a diploma which is not accredited. Of course, it is known that there is this college, but it is not accredited. Then now we want to do a degree, your diploma is not considered. Then your A-level was in Zimbabwe, post Form 4, you do A-level, is considered. Then you do a degree for 4 years. Now it means a prospective theological student has taken 4 years to do an unrecognized diploma, then another 4 years to do a recognized honors degree. You see, that is the process which I passed through. Then after that, you can do a master's. Now you can do a 3rd degree. You see, now it means we need to be sincere. I don't know if it is our leaders whom we were talking about, the moderators or the what, who want this thing to continue to be very hard and to be not easy for a person to attain theological education. So what we did when we came on board in terms of our college, because our church is a university now, we went to the university and say, we want to have an affiliate status with you. Then it was successful. The church accepted. Now we are training degrees, and the degrees in the name of the university, but the college is the house for that degree. The church provides lecturers who are qualified, who are accepted by the higher and tertiary education. Then they lecture. They are ministers. So the people whom they train after completing, they can be ministers of the word. So now it's shorter. 4 years, you have your first degree, then you can go and do a second and a third and what. But the problem is that what the churches are saying, they say, you want people to come and get an accredited honors degree. But these people, they want to go outside, they want to go elsewhere, they don't want to be ministers. If they want to be ministers, continue with an unaccredited diploma. Because if they get it, they go nowhere. You see, that is the problem which we have with the leaders, the older people, the older guys in the system. They want to continue to be gatekeepers. But you know what? We cannot control these people. If they are not called by God, then we give them the honors, then they can go. If they are not called by God, we give them the diploma, which is not accredited. They can use it elsewhere again. So the purpose of theological institutions is to make sure that they give training which is accredited to the would-be. You see? So what they do with it is not our duty. Ours is to give them what they should receive, competent, which is wholesome. It covers all areas. Then that is our task. But we face problems with the church leaders. They say we want to make these ministers more academic. We want them to continue to be docile, and they have useless papers.
Colleagues, if I just comment quickly, I think it's unethical if you as an institution does not adhere to quality education and also offer degrees or diplomas or whatever you have and it's not accredited. I think it's not what the church should do. The second thing is there's a continuous rise on the continent, and in South Africa it's a very pertinent problem of the bogus degrees that the American, Ryan, no against the Americans, prejudice against the Americans. You're Canadian, actually. That American institutions are selling, these online degrees. It's becoming, at SACWA here in South Africa, I just saw the list about 2 weeks ago. It's a long list of these bogus institutions. There's a lot of American institutions listed on it. And those degrees are selling for between around here between, I think it's $1,000 for a bachelor's, and it goes up to $10,000 more or less for a doctorate degree. And I've experienced it firsthand when I worked in some townships in that we had meetings with pastors in pastors' fraternals. And then 2 months later, you meet the same group, and the guy comes in and he elaborately introduced himself as Dr. So-and-so.
Coming in. I think she's coming in here.
That's the whole thing. And then we started looking into it because they are accredited with bogus accreditation institutions. So that's sort of where we have a major challenge. So, and we're going to find it everywhere in Africa, because that's the student that comes back to whatever and say, look, but now, I'm accredited. I've got a degree, so you need to give me this and this. So, colleagues, it's an important issue. I think in terms
Nico,
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to follow up. Nico sort of stole my thunder. I was actually going to raise this as a sort of any other business at the end of the meeting. These fake degrees, it's a big problem in South Africa. It's a big problem in South African prisons. My wife works quite a bit with Christians in prison, and I was going to ask, do any of you have any way of making courses? It doesn't need to be online courses, it can just be correspondence courses, but to make these, make your courses available by correspondence for prisoners, because the prisoners often think that they're being put in touch with a real American university, and they're sort of desperately scraping together money from family to pay for this, because they've come to Christ while in prison, and they feel that there's a call on them to certainly to evangelize amongst some of their fellow prisoners, and when they get out, they're looking forward to a life of service to sort of make up for their previous lives. Nico talks about a long list. The list is not as long as it might seem, because a lot of these institutions market themselves by 3, 4, 5 different names to different levels. But you follow it up and it's all the same post office box in America that everything's going back to. Yeah, so just, so if you all have my contact details, so if any of you have got any sort of correspondence courses that could be offered, then please get in touch. Thank you.
Maggie, do you want us to formulate something about something to take to ACTEA as a specific request that we ask ACTEA to look into the cost structure? Okay. Thank you, Elaine.
Where's the chair now? Oh, we have a standing chair now. The chair's there. I think it was an excellent idea or suggestion by Maggie that we should just check how many of our institutions still need additional or alternative accreditation from ACTEA. As you said, you know, this started years ago when national accreditation was not available, and just to reassure ourselves, you know, whether going to town with this whole issue is still worth it. I know that in Ethiopia, they had that you have to be accredited with ACTEA, or you can't send your students overseas to study. But just to make sure, you know, how many of our institutions still need international accreditation.
Okay, colleagues, the board is aware of the high cost attached to accreditation, but emphasized the necessity of accreditation to maintain high standards and quality qualifications and keep academic integrity as a priority. As a first resolution. The second one is the board is also aware that some of our members are accredited by their respective churches. So, and hence NetACT is not enforcing accreditation, but we advise that it will be good. And then the third one, I will formulate something about ACTEA in terms of costing and that. Will that be okay, sufficient? Can we move on? Because then our guest is here. Hannes, I'm going to ask you to introduce, or Len. Len, if you introduce our guest speaker for this afternoon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Colleagues, we have a guest this afternoon. Our first guest was online from the Netherlands just a bit earlier. She's Yolande Steenkamp. She's at the University of Pretoria with that long name, but it's the Sustainable Development Network or something, but she'll tell you exactly what that was. Yolande visited our university last 2 weeks ago, and she met with the Faculty of Theology, with the executive of the Faculty of Theology, and she told us what they do. And first of all, we were kind of surprised that she came to see us, because we've got this Water Institute and we've got the Climate Institute, but why would she come and speak to us at theology? And we were extremely pleased to see that she did go to the trouble to come and see us. But when she talked to us about what they do, I immediately realized that this is something that is on our agenda as NetACT all the time. And this is what we've been talking about with the Vision 63 of the AU and the aspirations that we now want to subscribe to for our strategic planning. So I invited her, since she is here in Pretoria. We were at Pretoria University yesterday at the Faculty of Theology there. So I invited her to come and tell us a bit about what they do and the different networks that they have overseas, and also the benefits for institutions if they join one of these networks, or even if they do not join, to be aware of the work that they do. So Yolande, please, thank you very much for coming. You can, there, right next to Nico, who's our Executive Director.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Len, and thank you. Do you have a PowerPoint presentation? Thank you for inviting me. It is a pleasure to be here. And it's that time of the afternoon. Unfortunately, I'm told I'm not very funny, so I can't make a quick joke to wake you up, but I'll try. At least I have a semi-colorful presentation, so let's hope that helps. We're just waiting for that. There we go. All right, so the long name is the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. I will give you a little bit of background on that, but we speak of the SDSN network. It's a global network doing basically all that it does through local, national, and regional networks. It was founded in 2012 under the auspices of the UN Secretary General. You may remember the days of the Millennium Development Goals. Remember that? Yes. So that was coming to an end, and everyone started wondering what would follow, and sort of to fill that gap and create a structured way of having that conversation. That was part of the initial reasoning behind the formation. So the SDSN, they are behind, to a large extent, the formulation of the 17 SDGs as we have them today. So we have had SDSN members in South Africa for a long time, but we have not had a national network. That was only launched in March this year, and it is that national secretariat that's hosted by the University of Pretoria. However, it's not about a University of Pretoria thing. We try to, it exists for the purpose of getting knowledge institutions to collaborate with each other in order to address complex problems. And then we also collaborate, I say collaborate, but really we're still a young national network. So let's say we are hoping to collaborate, we will collaborate also into Africa and internationally. So I don't think if I hear you all speaking about Agenda 2063, I don't think I have to explain. You're all aware? Yes, thanks. Okay, we can skip to the next slide. All right, yes, so I think I actually already gave the background. So what it is a network of knowledge institutions. So that's mostly your universities, some of your technological institutions. In South Africa, we call them universities of technology. Maybe I should just double check. I'm not only speaking to South Africans, right? Yes, this is all over from, yes, okay, thanks. So technological institutions, even NGOs, as long as they focus very specifically on the SDGs, and or especially also if they produce knowledge in some kind of way, they're involved in research, etc. Individuals and private companies cannot join as members of SDSN, and also some NGOs, for instance, won't be eligible for membership, but we partner with anyone. We have exciting projects that don't require membership, but those are our members. And then, as you can see, this is a large network, the largest of its kind in the world. Now, I think we've just gone over that number now, 1,728 members. I think we're slightly over that in 143 countries. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The three pillars of what the SDSN does, as I said, as a knowledge of, as a network of knowledge institutions, obviously there's going to be research in order to produce the kind of knowledge, but not to end up in a journal only, that's all good and well, but to really make an impact on the ground. So it's research for practical implementation, very specifically creating robust, innovative, cutting-edge solutions that we now need in order to implement the Sustainable Development Goals. And I actually like to start speaking of implementing the Sustainable Development Agenda, because the Sustainable Development Agenda, because we will come to the end of the SDGs and there will be something most likely following after that, but the agenda will continue. And as we are in Africa also combining that, integrating it with Agenda 2063 is really what the logic behind this is about for us. And also in the South African context, the National Development Plan. So the three pillars, there's then the strong policy, the research producing knowledge, and then translating that into policy, and or really, I almost want to say, cool, effective solutions that's based on research. And then the second pillar, education. There's so much happening regarding education in the SDSN that they made it separate in a sense, rather independent. It's called the SCG Academy, still part of SDSN, but functioning on its own. And there are many courses, I'll go into that in a minute. Then, yes, the global network of knowledge institutions, actually that's how everything happens. Nothing happens in SDSN outside of the members, and all of them exist in networks of networks and collaborate together on various projects. Thanks. I'm now going to really run through some of our formalized, long-running international work streams. These are not the only work streams that exist within SDSN, and it's only for today's purposes to give you an idea of the kind of things that we do. If there's anything that grabs your attention, you're welcome to scan that with your phone, and it will take you to a website or a web page where you will be able to read more about it. So we do work on sustainable cities, climate and energy, and good governance of extractive and land resources. This is very relevant, of course, for South Africa and some other mining intensive economies. Health for All, the science panel for the Amazon, they do very exciting things over there. The SDG Index and Monitoring is a yearly publication in the form of the Sustainable Development Report, and that contains the indexes on the SDGs, indexing all the countries, how they have progressed, how they're doing and faring in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals. That's really widely used. It's probably the most widely, globally speaking, source on obtaining data on how we are doing with the SDGs. Then again, timely data, that's that's one of my favorite websites actually, is SDGs Today. I encourage you to go check it out. Trends is about utilizing the explosion in data around the world due to everything becoming so technologized. Is that a word? I don't think so. But it has led to an explosion in all kinds of data. So this is about making sure that that data can be optimized for implementing sustainable development, making sure the policies are there, understanding the sort of forums where the data is generated, etc., etc. Spillover effect is an important lens through which to look at sustainable development, because very often a country may appear to fare very well in terms of their progress on the SDGs, but it might be because they've outsourced all their production to a country, and all the pollution and all the CO2 emissions is now happening there, and then they use the products here and they seem like they don't produce any pollution at all. So that kind of research to keep that in mind, and then also some future studies. All right, so focusing on education in Africa, perhaps worldwide, but in Africa especially, I know there's always been a very, an intimate relationship, association between education and faith-based organizations. Len, I don't remember now, did you mention that I studied theology?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
So I'm actually a theologian, or let's say a wannabe theologian. Yes, yes, I just happened to.
Now they will believe you.
Suddenly everyone wakes up.
You got it. You got it.
You all thought I was a scientist. When
We have two sisters here. We are so worried about the sisters.
That's not alleroorvloedigste fontein van alles wat goed is, but that's not Heidelberg, that's the other one. Oh, sorry. Hoe weet jy iets? Ja, dat jy of gered is of wat is jou enigste troos in lewe en in sterwe? Sorry for all the Afrikaans, he's just provoking me. Yeah, I can't believe actually that came from the deep recesses of the mind.
He's
Anyway.
asking her, requesting her to recite the Heidelberg catechisms. Which none of us around the table can do anyways. That's not fair.
But I did it. I did it. Yes.
Yes, she did.
Via the, what is the other one that I quoted first? No, it wasn't.
Yeah, that's Sunday too. The
yeah,
first
yeah,
one
yeah.
is Sunday one.
Anyway, back to the topic. A very intimate relationship between the church and education in Africa. And therefore, I think this is very relevant for faith-based organizations. The reason why, see, maybe it's I think, so they decided to make me network manager of the network. I don't know why really, because I'm a theologian, not a scientist. But now, since I am who I am, I'm really trying my best to involve faith-based organizations, because in the sustainable development space, there's a lot happening. If I can say from the top, meaning by that, very important work, not discrediting it, meaning policy formations, discussions between different sectors of government of how to integrate our thinking and our policies to implement the SDGs, etc. I just wonder if something very important is not lost that faith-based organizations are ideally placed to do, and that is to create a grassroots movement, mass mobilization in order to make a real difference on the ground by, for instance, opening our church buildings as community centers, education centers, in order to educate about sustainable development, do skills transfer, etc., etc. So some of this, I think, may be interesting, if not to you, then to some of the members that I think you present here today. Yes. Okay. I think let's go to the next slide. And then so we're still looking at the SDG Academy. These are some of their projects. I came here, I came in at the very end with the comment about courses in prison. I assume you were speaking of religious courses, theology, etc. These are also courses not about theology, but they are for free, and they are created by universities worldwide and put on the edX platform. Some of you may be familiar with the platform. And everything is done, they basically need an electronic, access to an electronic platform. So they can watch videos, and then there's also some reading to be done. I've done one of these courses. It's good, it's interesting, it's very user-friendly. And then it also allows you to go quite deep with some of the reading is nice, solid, sound academic reading. For those who don't want to go that deep, I suppose they won't do much of the reading. They'll watch the videos, have an overview of what it's about. They'll still be able to pass the course, at least the one I did. And okay, yes, so that is those are the MOOCs. MOOCs, I always have to think hard. Massive online, hey? Yes, yes, massive open online courses. There we go. All right, thank you. You can. All right, the SCG Academy is similar, except this is just a very large, you can see there last time I checked, 1,612 videos on everything related to sustainable development. There's moral theories in relation to development, ethics. There's more the soft sciences, there's more the hard sciences. And this is very nice for people who are in a position where they give lectures and perhaps they don't know much about sustainable development and they want to show a video. So it's also teaching content, but it is not arranged in courses. There's also a lot more here than there is on the MOOC site, on the edX platform that we saw in the previous slide. Thank you. Mission 4.7 is, so SDG 4 is on quality education, some of you may recall. And then the 7th target of SDG 4 is to do education in such a way that by the time our current learners finish secondary school, they will naturally have the skills in order to form the kinds of societies that naturally live sustainably and naturally implement sustainable development, because they've learned it from the start, not like us who learned the opposite. We learned to live in systems that are harmful to the planet, etc. So that's what that is about. Then the next one, I think, yes, this is my favorite, global schools. This provides, let me start by saying it is a network for schools. So any school can join, you have to apply. And then they have education content on there. They even have, if you look at the bottom, they have lesson plans, they have case studies that teachers can use for their classes. This is wonderful for large parts of Africa that very often don't have access to good material in their schools. I don't know if all of you have that problem, but we certainly struggle in South Africa. And then the next one, please. The community of practice is it's an online platform on which people who share similar interests can meet on a regular basis. That platform manages everything with regards to that. All of this, by the way, that I've spoken of so far is available completely free of charge. Also, membership doesn't cost anything. Membership in SDSN is free. There are on a few slides back, there are 2 master's courses, a master's in sustainable development that's done completely online through 2 international institutions. And then there's a network of masters in development practice courses that is done, it's let's say a joint, to an extent, a joint master's program by, I think at the moment, about 37 universities across the globe. There's only 4 in Africa. One is in Pretoria there, the University of Pretoria. Those 2 master's programs cost money. But apart from that, everything is free. But some of them you do have to apply for, community of practice being one. You can go to the next slide, thank you. And then I just want to say something before I forget, that many of you will come from countries that have either their own national network, I'll come to that in a second to say which ones those are, or regional networks. And some of those have already done work on religion and sustainable development. So you will be able to reach out to them if you're interested. I can put you in touch with the appropriate people to speak to. So yeah, you're welcome to, but my contact details are also on the last slide. So the networks, all I will say for if you can just go one back, for that slide is just to repeat that everything happens in the national and the regional networks. through the national and the regional networks, we try to coordinate and thereby strengthen the collaboration between different members of SDSN. Otherwise, institutions just tend to forget that they are SDSN members, and it sort of falls, you know, it slides further and further down the to-do list. But if there's a network and everyone's talking about what can we do, there's this problem, how can we solve it, then there's a lot of energy that is released to do good things. Thank you, you can go on. Then these are global work streams that have network status within SDSN, but they're not tied to any specific local, global, local or regional network. However, they are functional in most of these networks. SDSN Youth, which I think is also great for Africa. So far in SDSN in Africa, SDSN Youth is lagging a little bit behind. That is a very important area for us to address. Why? Because by far, most of the population are below 30. So that's where our energy lies. What else? The global solutions. I'm going to skip that for now, and I'm going to skip the network in action report. You can go. There you can see the networks in Africa. So you have the national networks on the left. We have 5, only 5. Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Uganda, and South Africa. You will see, can I just get an idea, who's from Southern Africa? Quite a lot. So there's a huge gap there, right? Can you see South Africa is really the only one. And then we have regional networks. We have Sahel, very far away, and a little bit closer we have Great Lakes, there by the Great Lakes. And then those are the lists of countries that do not have their own national networks, but that are included in the regional network. So in Africa, the idea would be to increase the number of national networks, because it is very often easier to encourage action nationally and then collaborate across borders. Thank you. You can skip that one. And I think also, yes, also that one is far too small, and that one. And then this is the current situation, just for those of you who are in South Africa. Those are our current members. And then, Len, what do you think? What should I say about soon-to-be members?
Oh, that's us.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay. I haven't heard anything official from that side since I've been there. But really, we hope Stellenbosch University, because they are such a strong university theologically, with the theological heritage in the country, that they'll join soon. Similar, in the same stage of process than them is UWC, University of Western Cape, Cape Peninsula University of Technology, and I think also University of Johannesburg. So I think we'll see quite a lot of growth real soon. And then I wanted to give you an idea of just what's been done in terms of, although we're such a very young, we've not been in existence for a year yet, but we did have a project on religion in collaboration with PARD. Are you familiar with the International Partnership on Religion and Sustainable Development? I know Stellenbosch has collaborated with them. There was a conference there last year. I think that was sort of round 1 of what was round 2 here at this round or regional forum on COVID-19 and faith-based organizations and the impact, etc. So that was one project. And then if I remember correctly, yeah, I just added some photographs for you of what we did. And then we're partnering on transcultural leadership for sustainable development, because we see the future as the way it is unfolding as a future of connection, a future of relationship. Although a lot of that will be facilitated through technology, it will be a world where connection will determine success, inclusion, etc. And therefore we work with, it started originally at Zeppelin University in Germany, but it has now grown to what they call the transcultural network, and we work with them to arrange events, and yes, that will be later this year, we will have a satellite event of that at the University of Pretoria. And hopefully we will host at Future Africa. Future Africa is a large campus at the University of Pretoria, off main campus, where we have conferences, etc. Beautiful space. And we hope to host the first ever Transcultural Leadership Summit that takes place outside of Germany. It's always been there, but we're now planning to have one in Africa. So when the time comes, I hope that many of you will join us. The idea behind transcultural collaboration, we often hear multicultural and we often hear intercultural. Often, not always, but often that's more about describing differences, enforcing, understanding each other's differences, which is important. It's just a matter of emphasis. The transcultural approach, and I therefore actually also think, and that's why I put it in here, the trans-religious approach is to say, well, how can we collaborate? How can our differences strengthen our collaboration? How can we create belonging, create a sense of community in order to get things done, even though we come from different cultural backgrounds? I think that's a worthwhile discussion to have, and I hope we manage to host that in South Africa soon. And I believe that is, yes, that's the end of my presentation. You'll see my contact details there, but you're also welcome to circulate that. And if you have any questions, either now or later, you're welcome to direct them to me.
Thank you for this presentation. This is one of those information that this network is very interested in.
Okay.
And we're happy that you are here to share this to our partners or to the network members. I believe that we will jump on this. Now, if we will jump on it, should we do it as individual institutions or as a network?
That is a very good question, and thank you for that. I think we need to explore it a little bit. So there has been precedence within STSN of networks joining. It is not the same process for a network to join as it is for an individual institution. And it is usually they take it on a case-by-case basis. So if you as this is a general meeting, yes? So yes. If you decide that this is what you would like to do, then I suggest you write an email. I will reach out to people within STSN. If you could perhaps make things like your website information available to me, a list of the members, things that you've done, just like an overview. It doesn't have to be long or extensive. Then I can provide that to them, and then they will be able to give direction from there. Perhaps they will want to meet with one of you, maybe a group of you online, and come to a decision.
Yeah, because the network is already focusing on Agenda 2063, and here is Agenda 2030, which is already being used. And so we see ourselves, really, we want to be part of anything that will bring the transformation that this nation needs, this continent needs. So, and we are privileged to have institutions across the continent that are members of the network. So we see, we are not just here to do a presentation, but a presentation to collaborative partners.
Music to my ears.
Yes.
Colleagues, more questions, Chair, and then also on our online colleagues. I don't see anybody. Okay, there are 4, but is there any raising of hands? Okay, Yolande.
If I can just make a comment, colleagues, I think it's what really struck me when Yolande visited us in Stellenbosch is the fact that they have these online courses. I mean, we constantly talking about issues of poverty, of health, of the climate, and we often in our colleges and in our institutions, we do not have the expertise regarding this. But here we not only have, lectures on it, we have information on it as well. We have the NIP, which is an internet portal for all our members and all 20,000 students that are part of our member institutions. And on that, we also post all information, open access information, theology and otherwise that might be relevant to training in our institutions. And I wanted immediately to tell Fraser, because he's the one that maintains that portal, about it. And then I thought, oh no, but you're going to speak to us. So I'm sure that he would love to also add the links to your library on that portal of ours as well. Thank you.
Yes, and especially that they are so user-friendly and they are free. So if you want the certificate, then there is a small fee, but you get an email that you've completed the course even without the certificate. So you do have proof. And what's nice about these courses, I think I mentioned it that day with you, Len, as well, that the way we use them at the University of Pretoria, I told you we offer that Masters in Development Practice. So when the students come, we want to know that they have at least a certain level of understanding on what the 2030 agenda and the SDGs are. And therefore, as an entry requirement into that program, we require them to do that course. And that's a very nice way to go about, because then you know at least that everyone's speaking a similar language and there's a shared understanding. If I may dream for a moment, if the collaboration becomes real in the future, what I think would be a marvelous contribution from the African continent, given that we are a religious continent, would be that with some of our strong universities with faculties of theology, in partnership with this network and some of your members, create on this platform a MOOC course on religion and sustainable development in Africa that has as its objective to equip anyone who does the course to implement certain programs through their own faith communities. We would have to do fundraising for that. It's a lengthy process and it's very expensive to develop a MOOC course, but it can be done. So I would really say, especially since you have such a strong network, I mean, yeah.
That's very good. Yes. More hands.
And mostly everyone stayed awake.
Yes.
I wonder if, as theological institutions which serve the church directly, couldn't host some of those courses or help the youth in the churches. There are a lot of youth in the villages who are sitting, who are idling, and who are engaging in those things that nobody likes. And I wonder if we couldn't take some of those free courses and offer and help our our youth groups engage in those. Our denomination has, the Lesotho Evangelical Church in Southern Africa has around 590 local churches in Lesotho, mostly in Lesotho and here in South Africa. And I wonder if we couldn't have created a better movement of people who are aware of the SDGs and who can participate in that agenda. Yes. I think this, I like the idea of education more than most things. So I think we can take that up and have youth registering. We have a youth office in Morija, which coordinates all youth activities in the country, within the church. But also as the seminary, we could start coordinating that as short courses for our youth.
Yes.
I think that would work. I'm just hoping it is possible.
I think it will be usually, these courses, if I remember correctly, are registered under the common license. So I think the problem would become, we need to double check some of these from a legal perspective, because the MOOCs are created for individuals to log in with a username and password and complete the course one-on-one. That doesn't mean you can't do that, have a group of people in a room and show them on a large screen. I mean, why not? But if you started doing that and you charged people money for something you got for free, then I think there would be a problem. But we would check this legally with but I think it's very doable. Yes, sir.
Once more, I think we are blessed in that Mr. Chair, she came in at one point where we're talking about the possibility of double degrees for, for theological students.
That's right.
Now, I wish to push his point further. We've realized that some universities are already registered. And the chair was suggesting if we could come in as a network or as individual members. Now, I want to throw this to the executive and to herself. Don't we see this already as an answered prayer to the question of double degrees? In that, if we facilitated this move into either into the network or into individual partner institutions, then it will offer students, our students, the possibility for those who are sharp, while they are pursuing their theological degrees, to find time, even if they have graduated, still to continue to pursue that one. And at the end, they would have had a bachelor's degree, and they would have had, I don't know, another secular degree, which will qualify them much more. Let me take the case of Cameroon. In Cameroon, you may be shocked to learn that my PhD degree is not recognized by the state. But if you attach to your PhD a diploma of what level, no matter diploma, no matter what, a secular, even a diploma of 6 months, your PhD is recognized. So these programs that you are offering, if you get into our system, into our network, or into our different institutions, I think it is going to answer some pending issues and help the clergy, especially the clergy who want to pursue education in other areas. I was doing development studies, but when it came to the point of graduation, the university where I was studying forwarded my documents to the Ministry of Higher Education. My file was dropped because I had a theological degree. But others, I was pursuing as a PhD holder. Others were pursuing as master degree holders, first degree from secular subjects. But they went through. So this is very, very welcome for us. We simply want to know, how can this be facilitated to get into our systems?
Can I answer that? It is immediately accessible to anyone who has an internet connection. and can create and an email address, because you need a username and a password. Immediately accessible. If you scan, you're welcome to make this presentation available. I don't know who I should say this to. If you scan that QR code there with the MOOC courses, if you scan that QR code, it will take you to that page. And then anyone who creates a username and password, they can access those courses immediately. If you want to do it on a more institutionalized basis, then I think the way to go about this would be I think we should separate the question of membership, engage in whether the network can join as member of the STSN, and then arrange an online meeting with SDG Academy, because they deal with these questions of how it can be applied in different all the time. I don't have the answers to that as a national network manager, but I can help set that up. And interestingly, I just last weekend, the weekend before, I think the Global Leadership Council of the Global STSN had their meeting in New York around the time of the UN General Assembly. And I was surprised then to hear them speak for quite a long time about a project going on between the Vatican and STSN, because they are recognizing the role of religion. So I think they would be, and I'm speaking now of the president of the global STSN, Jeffrey Sachs. I wonder, I think he would be interested in getting involved if we did this at scale in Africa. I can't speak on his behalf, but I could inform him through the channels in some way. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. One step at a time. Let me know if you are interested. I will connect you, and we take it from there.
I think that this is something that I know our brothers and sisters from the Islamic faith have taken seriously. Very, very seriously. And they're deeply involved in it. It's providing opportunity for job opportunity for their youth and all of that. And other privileges, because they are engaged in this conversation. I mean, it will be a shame for the church in Africa not to be deeply involved, and particularly our theological institutions, addressing both theological institutions and faculty of theologies and departments of religions across the continent. So the academy is really what we will want to go for. Asking the last question you asked, I don't know, on your behalf, could I say yes? Let's look at, let's explore the possibilities and make that information available. If it is something that as a network we can promote, because part of our aims are to encourage, to promote things, to connect, to collaborate, because we have a principle that is guiding us. The principle, we are a theologian, the let us principle. Let us. That's how we are working. That's our mind.
Yes.
So whatever we are doing, we are seeing it from that perspective. And we want to recreate the world through the let us. Thank you.
So just to be clear, if you were asking them whether you would want to apply for STSN membership as a network, or whether you would like to explore ways that you can distribute these courses in your network.
Yeah, in our network. Yeah.
Okay, I need to know which email I have to write.
Yeah. Okay. But maybe the two questions together.
Okay, I will.
Partnership is there because we will want, by the time we begin to distribute these questions, these courses, perhaps if there is the possibility of funding, so that we don't have to ask our people for it.
Yes,
Yes. Other opportunities that are there.
Yes.
But Overall is the service to our continent that we want.
Yes. So it will be two separate emails because it has to go to different people, but I will write them. And if I can ask that you just send me the various people that I have to include in the email and introduce them.
Yes. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
You will be our contact person. Yeah.
And perhaps this is just a suggestion. I don't know your structures and how you work. It might be helpful to separate those two things. So let's say have a committee of people who will find out information regarding sharing courses, and then a group of people who will engage on membership application for membership in the network.
You work on the academic sharing process. And then the office will work on partnership.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Anyway, I think this is great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
for
thank you
coming
that I
along,
could
and
come.
we look forward to that collaborative partnership.
Yes, so do I. Thank you. And doing very good things together.
Thank you.
Chair, our resolution is as follows. The board expresses appreciation for the presentation and advise the members to partner with SDSN in the research that they are doing. 2, the board also advise the members to take note of the free online courses that is available at SDSN. And then I'll put the website in there. And number 3, the board asked Len Hansen to advise the EXCO and the office on the way forward. Is that good? Thank you. Let's go for tea.
The way to put it, he pursued the academic possibility of, member institution tapping into the academic position or availability of those opportunities. Because of what he has encouraged, and others are also encouraging that, but because of our previous discussion on the possibility of getting, double bonus. This could be an override the courses that they have in our. Yes. So you are dealing with that. But the office work on partnership. That's another aspect, because we need a partnership in case of, in case of their, the World Bank is not supporting this. And we know that the African Bank is also supporting this. So we need to find a way of seeing if we can tap into those resources. I wish that we have somebody permanently checking some of the opportunities that are in the continent. And following up and passing those information to us so that we are more proactive on this. I wish we have funding to just fund people that can be doing this.
Colleagues, that's my problem. Sorry, it's late and I'm very tired at this moment. You keep on shoving this stuff to the office. Who is the office? It's that guy sitting there and it's me. I do not have the time, sorry, Chair. I do not have the time to follow these networks and stuff up. So who's going to take responsibility for it? Sorry. It's not going to be me.
Yeah, it's not going to be you, but we can affect something. Do you want to volunteer?
Our institutions are of various statuses. The University of Stellenbosch, for example, and the University of Pretoria, for example, own their programs, they can sign their degrees. But we're just talking about institutions that are looking for accreditation. If we simply transfer those courses into those institutions, it will still not solve the problem. Because those programs will need to be accredited within those institutions again. So there are two levels. For me, if there is an institution which is already a well-established institution, now they can borrow. But there are institutions that if they borrow, they will still be at the same level can't they tap directly so that the certificate will come directly from that direction?
Okay, we'll talk about that. Now, the thing is the partnership. I can work on the partnership with them. So just give me the information.
Chair, you are also overcommitted.
What?
So you are also overcommitted.
I have so much, but I'll find a way of getting so much of that.
That's why I advise, let's have a conversation about this at the Exco. Let Len advise us on ways forward.
Okay.
That was the whole purpose, that we divide in the two sections, and then let's move away forward and find a way to do it. And we'll get back to the members. Let's break for tea, colleagues.